Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha.
Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni.
Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha.
Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni.
Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha.
Namo Fundamental Teacher Shakyamuni Buddha.
Okay, songbooks, please, page 12. Praise the Buddha. There's a story behind this song. This went a long way to encouraging me to continue with my ministry of using musical instruments to spread the Dharma. We were in Longquansi. Longquansi is north of Beijing. That's the monastery where the monk who's in charge of Buddhism in China is the abbot, Master Xuechang. And Master Xuechang is a forward-thinking monk. He's got a blog. He has a famous blog, he actually writes. It's interesting blog. And it's been translated by his translators into 9 languages now and put online. You know, it's in Spanish and Portuguese and Russian and Japanese. And so he's a fairly progressive monk. And he's the one who has the robot. Have you seen the robot? Now, what's the robot's name? Xiao'er. Xian'er, yeah. He's a famous robot. You ask him a Dharma question and he answers a spontaneous robotic Dharma answer back to you. It's pretty clever, apparently. Anyway, we're likely going to go visit him next week. But here I am. He's got the robot. We're going to see. We will not get away from Longquansi without meeting the robot. They're going to be so proud to show us the robot. I won't bow to him. I've been a monk longer than the robot's been a robot. So. I think he does. Wow. So they dress him up as a monk. That's the shtick, right? That's the funny part. So okay. Anyway, so all his Master Xuechang's young disciples. I lectured at Beijing University, and he has lots of Beijing University students. So his disciples saw me lecture and invited me to come to the monastery. So I'm out there in the monastery and on a whim, I took my guitar. It's like, no, maybe this is like too far out in the monastery with a guitar. So I'm halfway through my lecture, and one of the young people who's kind of, in Australia they'd say he's cheeky, a cheeky disciple, said, "Our Master Sure, would you sing a song?" And I'm going, I don't know, Master Xuechang, can I sing a song? And he's like, go ahead. So I thought, okay. So I put the lyrics to this song on the screen behind me and pull out my guitar, and everybody's going, okay, And so I say, now, however, the fun part is, this is not a performance, this is a sing-along. You know this song. They're all looking at each other, but it's in English. I said, right, you know this song. And so the melody is Amazing Grace. And they all look at each other, and they're reading the screen, and they're pleased to show off their English knowledge, because most Chinese have had, by college age, you've had how many years of English growing up? Like a lot. And while speaking is a challenge, reading is something they're best at. So they're all going, upon the, within the second line, the entire hall, 600 people are singing out loud, Amazing Grace, praising the Buddha in English. Master Xuechang's going, Amazing Grace. So he's singing along with it. So this is a hit in Beijing. It's on the top of the Buddhist hit parade. So here we go. Got it? Page 12. You there? Everybody got it? Upon the earth below the sky. The Buddha has no peer. In 10 directions everywhere, he is beyond compare. He's gone beyond duality. He's never born again. With wisdom bright, he blesses me. He knows my joy and pain. He walked the noble middle way with strength and purity. In dark of night and light of day, his kindness touches me. He's not divine, but he's awake. He's neither come nor gone. I find him in each blade of grass. He is the wisdom sun. Guitar break. Last verse, here we go. I've searched around this whole wide world, and now I can declare you'll never find a wiser one than Buddha anywhere. Last 2 lines. You'll never find a wiser one than Buddha anywhere. There you go. Brought to you from the top of Turtle Mountain. Okay. You can tuck those songbooks underneath your sutra, and please turn to the, so it would be the back, it would be page 2, the back of page 1, the title of the sutra. We're going to do the homage to. Okay, let's do it one time. Here we go. Homage to the great flower garland scripture of the Buddha's expanded Mahayana teachings and the ocean-wide flower garland assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Turn to page 7. Okay, from page 7 over to page 9, paragraph 2 is all about being at home and practicing amid the family and in the world. So let's read through down to page 8 over to page 9, paragraph 2, and then come back and look into it. Okay, let's start with when a bodhisattva lives as a householder. Here we go, together. When a bodhisattva lives as a householder, he thinks, may all living beings recognize the vanity of the householder's life and avoid its oppression. When being filial to my parents, I think, may all living beings serve the Buddhas skillfully, protecting and nurturing everyone. When I get along with my spouse and children, I think, may all living beings treat enemy and friend equally, and forever turn away from greed and grasping. When amidst the 5 objects of desires, I think, may all living beings pull out the arrow of lust and get ultimate peace and calm. At festive occasions or musical gatherings, I think, may all living beings see that such pleasures are empty and take Dharma as their enjoyment. When I am in a palace or a house, I think, may all living beings enter the sage's state and be free forever from defiled craving. When I wear a necklace of precious gems, I think, may all living beings renounce all vain ornaments and find what is true and real. When I go up a staircase, I think, may all living beings ascend the stairs of the right Dharma and see through everything clearly. When I have something to give, I think, may all living beings be able to let go of everything, their hearts free of affection and clean. In a crowd or gathering, I think, may all living beings renounce the dharmas of acquisition and accomplish omniscience. Last one. When in suffering and difficulty, I think, may all living beings live as they wish, be at ease, and be unobstructed in all they do. Okay. Isn't it interesting how people read exactly as the text tells them to? Why, see, next time we go through, we're going to have to put a comma after I think. Because everybody goes, I think may all living beings, which is not right. It's when being filial to my parents, comma, I think, comma. But we didn't do that. I should have thought of that. It's funny how when you read it, you get it all. You know, that's exactly what we told people to do. I think may all living beings. And it's not. I think, breath, may all living beings. Okay. So, this is the section talking about what it's like to be a pre-monastic, a future monastic, in preparation for making practice of the Dharma your full-time occupation. It's, since how many monks in the room? One, 2, 3 and a half, right? No, he's a full monk, but fewer precepts. So we got four monks and 4 nuns. We got 8 monastics and a few pre-monastics here. And everybody else is a layperson. So the our Purifying Practices chapter has some sections that are specifically spoken for left home people. For example, there's instructions about when you're going to houses for alms, going around with your bowl to get food, right? So those are clearly for people who are monastics, but a large piece of it, probably half and more, is completely aimed at, it's applicable to everybody. So monastic and lay alike. That's one of the reasons we chose this, because it's not talking specifically to a kind of a privileged group of monastic precept holders. You know, that's interesting to some of us, and maybe you respect it, but it doesn't relate. This relates directly. Okay, so it's talking. Here's Manjushri Bodhisattva saying, if you ask the question, how do I live right? Then here are the answers. 141 answers, and see if they fit you. When the Bodhisattva lives as a householder, she thinks, may all living beings recognize the vanity of the householder's life and avoid its oppression. Last night we identified vanity here not as you're so vain, Carly Simon talking to James Taylor. It's vanity meaning in vain, meaning empty, useless. I'm going to need to grow my arm a little. Omi Tofo. Thank you, Jin Husher. It's talking about meaning in vain, meaning comes to nothing. The Chinese word to translate was kong, which translated the Sanskrit word probably shunya or shunyata. So meaning you don't get anything finally in the end. It's empty because all that work and the householder's life moves on, and you're back to the basics, which is my karma, essentially, the results of things I do. True for everybody. I went last night back to where I live, which is over there, and put down my sutra and turned on the light, and here was a spider. And the spider, he was coming down from the ceiling on one strand, and he was about this speed, plop. And luckily I had my macro lens, my close-up lens, so I put my lens on, focusing in on, it's a habit, you know, so focusing in on the spider, and there he was, open for business. He was like this optimistic, enterprising spider. It's like, you know, what is there to get, you know, who can I eat, you know? And he's like, just, it was kind of heartwarming because this spider was so like, you know, enthusiastic about his spider opportunities. And he's like, there he was, you know, and on top of the sutra. And I was just thinking, man, oh man, what are his choices? You know, what are the realities? It's night, he's in his turf, it's not foreign territory, but what's he got ahead? What, you know, what's going to happen to this little critter? And I remember myself back in the day when if I saw a spider, my first move was what? Immediately, just you see it, you crush it, you know. And this morning, beating the wooden fish on our foxglove, Jinrosher foxglove? Foxglove. Okay, there was, coming from the foxglove, there was a little tiny spider. It was the tiniest little thing right there. I mean, it was the size of a pin tip, not a pin-headed, pin tip, living its entire life inside the foxglove flower. And I'm, you know, Namo Moha Boro, watching this little spider go around and live his life. His entire life is there, doing what, you know, little tiny foxglove spiders do. And just to flip into that reality is just this, you know, you think, man, oh man, me too. You know, exactly the same. And how in the past I would have seen that little spider and gone, just because that's what you do to spiders. You know, you extinguish them. If you're, you know, 12 years old and you see a spider, you're supposed to kill him. And it's ingrained. And yet, here I am. And I don't have a 1 week life or a 48-hour life. I've got a 48-year life or a 50-year life, 70-year life, 80-year life. But it's the same. So the key in this verse is the bodhisattva is in the household. In other words, somebody who sees the suffering, understands it, and decides not to put up with it, not to just let it slide. Instead, because they recognize the frustration of life in the world, they decide to change things. Okay? So this is not the end. Recognizing the vanity is the start of the bodhisattva's practice.
So it's just becoming aware that...
Yeah, recognize. You say, that's not right. Yeah. Okay? Wasn't that a good answer? Wasn't this? That's good. I flipped that one around. That was good. It's not from me. It's in the sutra. But I mean, Chela lobs these softball questions. You know, you can bang, hit it out of the park. That's perfect, right? Because why? It's really not that Manjushri is saying, family life, oppressive. That's it, labeling it. He's not. He's saying, recognize its nature and then go to work. Okay, all right. So now, how do you do that? Starts out by being filial. Being filial to parents, I think, may beings, key verb, the verb in line 3 is always the key, serve. Serve the Buddhas skillfully, protecting and nurturing everyone the way you saw your parents treat you and the way you want to treat not just your own children, not just repaying your own parents, but everybody. So it takes small filiality and expands it big. Now, this is a key. We want to spend a bit of time here because Master Hua pointed out filiality as an important topic for us to pay attention to. And he called it not only important, he said this is jiu guo miao yao. He said this is a magic medicine that'll heal the entire country. So in that statement is the assumption the country needs healing, that it's sick. And I think we can say that. And it's not America is not uniquely sick. It's a thing of the times these days that relationships break up. It's hard to stay related. When my dad went out to get a job, if you got hired by the firm, by the company, chances are you expected to be employed for 10, 20, 30 years, maybe your whole life. Right? I think the elders here, right? The idea that you were let go was hard, So you became a company man. My childhood was financed by Toledo scales. No springs, honest weight. Right? Anybody in America grew up with Toledo scales? That was, when you go to the butcher shop or the grocery store, it was right? Jim's nodding, It was, and it had the Libra sign. La balance in French, right? Right? Jim Roche remembers. Toledo scales, no springs, honest weight. And it was white, not porcelain, but white burnished metal, And everybody had a Toledo scale. Came out of Toledo. My dad was a lawyer for the corporation. So my dad would go to work at the plant, going out to the plant, which means the factory where the offices were. And Toledo scales got sold later. Anyway, nowadays, in Silicon Valley, which is particularly fast, but I think is the direction things are going, entire companies, come into being and go away within about 18 months. Used to be, when we grew up, we had not only our parents to model ourselves after, we had grandparents. How many people grew up in a multi-generational home? All the Leos did, that's funny. Over here, okay, great, all right, yeah, good. So you had more than just your parents there. So in let's say, filiality is associated with the cultures of China and India particularly, and wherever those cultures went out. Big families, okay? And we think about the cultures of Mediterranean Europe. Big families, Italians, big Italian family, big Irish families, big Mexican families, where the value of people was preserved longer. Doug Powers, I'll take his name in vain here, he can rebut, but it's nice to have him in the room so he can correct me if I'm wrong. Doug taught at Berkeley High for 36 years, taught 17-year-olds. Doug, what was the family makeup of most of the kids when you finished teaching? Like 50% were single families, single parent families?
Probably bigger. Probably bigger than that, 50%.
Yeah, more.
Yeah, probably larger than 50%.
Yeah. And there were other, no parent families, but kids raised by grandparents or collective adult parents, So things are changing. The point is things are changing now. And for Master Hua, there's my lifeline back. For Master Hua to say, filiality is the glue that holds the country together, is spoken at a time when that unit is changing. Maybe it's gone, right? It's gone. So, what replaces it? The answer is, we don't know. Brave New World. Brave New World. Where are kids going to get their modeling about how to be grown up? So, like companies come and go so quickly, my dad's generation, you could expect to stay employed by the same get the same title on the paycheck that you get for generations. Now it's quicker, it's really faster. So families are switching. What's going to replace it? I'm going to show you some photos later on in the week of an experience that I witnessed right in front of me, which is a baby butcher bird learning how to be a grown-up butcher bird by watching mom. And I caught it, because the baby is like totally awkward, doesn't even fly very well, bangs into things, you know, misjudges the landing and bangs into stuff. And mom is there. I won't tell you the story now, because I want you to see it with your eyes. But the baby learns how to do it by watching mom. That's how it's done. Monkey see, monkey do, right? You imitate the bigger one to become a bigger one yourself. Now, without the bigger ones, how do we do it? You know, well, the answer is social media. We go to Snapchat. We don't go to Facebook anymore. Facebook's over, right? According to my college students. Facebook, you're dated, you know. Instagram is like quickly going. Twitter, forget it. So we don't know. But how do you learn how to do it? So here's a traditional answer. When being filial to my parents, I think, may all beings serve the Buddhas the way I would serve my parents, and then expand that to include everybody. Protecting and nurturing everyone. So serving, protecting, nurturing. That's the notion of filiality here. We've got, for Shifu to say what he did, we have another challenge, which is filiality means something different to people who grew up with it in their culture. Jin Chuan Shi and I are going to Hubei province after this camp, to another summer camp where the topic is filiality. China being taught to college kids, hundreds of them. And this is a really popular camp that Master Minghai runs every summer. Now, what I understand when I say Xiao Dao to a lot of people who grew up in a traditional Chinese, Taiwanese, Japanese, Korean family, it means something very different than what Master Xuanhua presented to us. Shifu was a reformer. He reformed this notion of filiality from what he lived and what he introduced to us. Two different things. So I remember my first couple attempts to report Chinese virtue back to Taiwanese, because I didn't get to China until just a few years ago, but I went to Taiwan regularly. I would say, well, you know, filiality is really an important thing, and people would go, yu xiao, bun xiao, you know, who wants that? We want rock and roll, you know, we want hip-hop culture, we want to be contemporary, we're modern, we're in Taiwan, you know, we make all your laptops, get real. And I would say filiality, and I find myself alone talking about filiality and realize that I was carrying coals to Newcastle. Does that work? I was preaching to the choir, but it was a different song than I thought I was singing. I was singing a different song than I was being heard. Because filiality, to people who've lived with it for thousands of years, becomes institutionalized, rigid, oppressive, harsh, and it translates as obey me. Ah. Right?
All the kids
Hear that?
yes.
Yeah. Off the parent. Off the pig. So what does that mean? Master Hua didn't interpret it that way. He reformed filiality. That's not what it meant, the way he taught it to us. And so I'm optimistic about being able to reintroduce Xiao Dao to Asia with this new emphasis. It's zhi en bao en. It's not ting hua. Okay, ting hua means do what I say. Zhi en means recognize that you have been given to with kindness and think to repay it. Bao'en. Tinghua, listen to me, comes from your head. Zhi'en Bao'en, repay kindness, comes from your heart. Master Hua put filiality in the heart, took it out of the head. Okay, so that should communicate, I think. Because why? It's fundamental when you have been shown how to be a human being by your role model to connect to it. And if the parent did it, you know, with kindness, there's an awareness that there's a lot of giving going on. And it's a spontaneous thing in the child's heart to want to keep that flowing through giving. At a certain, the big transition happens when the kid realizes at some point that he or she is not small anymore. Right? I'm actually, you know, not 5 years old when I kind of realized that I needed to relate to my parents. I'm a grown-up, maybe I have kids now, and I see that process and I recognize my parents. So it's a sooner or later we grow into that ability to give back. And that's, I think, filiality really kicks in at that point. So, now, I know there are people in the room who are translating this into your situation. And there are multiple situations. Every time we have a wonderful Thursday night group at the Berkeley Monastery. They're Spirit Rock, called the East Bay Insight Meditation Community now. It used to be called Spirit Rock East, East Bay. Now it's the Insight Meditation Community. And they are about 85% Caucasian, mostly Jewish, mostly psychotherapists, interestingly enough. So it's a great test case for all our, you know, the notions that we're getting through Master Hua's introduction of the Dharma, tested out in the West. And so occasionally, over the 21 years that they have been coming to our monastery, I will teach. And occasionally, during the teaching, I would introduce filiality and get the feedback. And see, we test case these ideas. This is our focus group, right? So there's always, after I introduce filiality, there's 5 or 6 folks who come up to me and say, excuse me, I, you know, listened really carefully to what you were saying, and are you telling me that I'm supposed to go back? You want me to put myself in the way of, you know, of parental abuse, you know, of child abuse? And, you know, that's one. And there's always people who have that situation. And there are other people who come and say, I would love to do that, but I lost my mom at age 3. So what do I do? You know. So what I'm saying is, in the room right this minute, there are people hearing this and translating. Translate it into your situation. And so to answer those 2 questions, of course not. We're not saying if you had an abusive parent or an alcoholic parent or an absent parent, that we're not saying that, number 1, you're a loser, or 2, you should put yourself back into a bad situation. However, the connection in our hearts, in our natures, to the parental role never goes away. The need to have a father molding and a mother nurturing is with us forever. So, things we can do if we are in a situation where we didn't have 2 loving parents, which we have heard from Doug, is the minority of situations now. Most often, they're not a nuclear household, right? 2 parents, a station wagon, and a family dog. It's not the case anymore. What do we do? So, one thing to do is, if you say, I would like to recognize kindness paid to me and repay it, 知恩报恩, is you can go into that place in my heart where I relate to limits, which is the dad, strong walls, and the nurturing, the feeding, that is the mother, and send goodness with my heart. Transfer the merit there. Just send all those longing thoughts, the broken thoughts, the hopeful thoughts, the wishing thoughts, send them to that place in us. Because, why? The roles shift. Our parents were kids. We become parents, right? Our parents' parents were kids who had to figure out how to work out this relationship. It's an eternal, right? We saw our parents as these big, huge no-sayers. No, you can't do that. Stop that. Right? They were the limits, the authorities. They were kids who someone showed how to be, how to grow up and socialize and do things right. You know. Nobody holds the final handbook on how to be a parent. We just kind of stumble into it. You know? Who teaches us finally how to be the perfect dad, mom? No. It's like we trial and error, you know, we kind of try our best. And some parents are way kinder and more skillful at raising a child without, you know, hitting or shouting. Others just kind of take it as it comes. In any case, these are shifting roles. And as we grow and mature, we can find it in our hearts to forgive our parents for the sometimes on, sometimes off job of being perfect parents that they showed us. And the challenge is not to repeat it ourselves. You know, not to become the failure parents that my parents were. No, right? So look at your parents with kindness and appreciate that there's no perfect handbook for being a parent. Pip.
How about manifesting that same reverence and respect for Mother Nature, who is the mother of us all? Placing the ecosphere.
Spoken like a mountain man from Oregon.
Can you repeat?
What about manifesting reverence for Mother Earth, who is the mother of us all? That's a perfect place to put those feelings of wanting to repay but having your parents unavailable for whatever reason, right? Give it to the earth. And refuse to rape the earth, refuse to abuse the earth, get into a relationship with the nurturing Gaia, you know, the earth, that repays. That's a perfect place to do that, is to recognize. You just say, wow, this is, you know, thank you for giving me food today, Mother Earth, you know. Yeah, thanks for that. So that's one way to do it. Another way is to find a lonely elder, of which there are so many elders who have a television to relate to today. They have their favorite shows, you know, because it comes on every day, and the attendants put them in the chair in front of the TV and maybe sedated. And that's what they had to look forward to. And there's a birthday, and then they notice there's an empty chair at the table because another one's gone, you know. And oh my goodness, and these are people who had incredible lives, you know, people who, boy, in Berkeley, Professor Nakasone took me into my doctoral chairman was a scholar of geriatric spirituality, the spiritual needs of elders. And he had a couple seniors' homes in Berkeley where he would go regularly, a chaparral house, and he would take me there with my guitar and say, Heng Sure, you sing to them. I'm going to go visit old Joe, you know. And so I would sing, and the elders would go, hey, did you stop? Let's sing another one. You know. And it was like, boy, I just realized, whoa. And then Nakasone would come through and he'd say, oh, Heng Sure, how'd you do here? Let me introduce you. This is emeritus professor of geography from the University of California, nominated for a Nobel Prize. And I was and he's, you know, and over here, this person traveled to 40 countries. Look at their passport, shows everyone. This was a journalist who specialized in war zones and brought the news, and this person. You know, and it's like, oh, I get it, you know. These are people who were so alive, and look, there they are. Now, Nakasone made it his job to go connect to him. And he was beloved, you know, because he saw the human in this old body, sleepy, sedated in front of the TV. And he gave them full attention, you know, regularly, not just once. So that, you know, it's like, okay, me too, huh? Where are we going? Right? That chair in front of the computer, you know, with now the pair of earbuds. That's where we're going. So it's really important to look at the parent in me and to explore that living potential to be a good father, a nurturing, a kind-hearted father and a nurturing mother, a firm mother and a compassionate father. Both of those, explore those roles and to recognize these are fluid relationships, right? So if we can repay the kindness of the earth, then repay the kindness of lonely elders who maybe didn't have kids, who maybe kids are gone, and there they are, you know. That's really powerful to look into that. Okay, so we've looked at one verse so far. How are we doing? We're really slow. We're not going to make it through to the end of page 9. Turn to page 8. When I get along with spouse and children, I think, may all living beings treat enemy and friend equally. Ooh, who is who? Oh, my kid's my enemy, right? And wrong. And forever turn away from greed and grasping. Why is greed and grasping brought together with spouse and children? Notice it's spouse, it's not wife. Notice it's spouse, it's not husband. It's non-gender specific, so it fits both. So from the point of view of the wife looking at her husband, when I get along with my husband and my kids, I think, may I be impartial and do away with the category of friend and enemy, near and far, right? Close and distant. Those categories are out there, but they're not helpful when I'm going past the surface into the heart of the human experience, which is prone to greed, meaning something that rises. The Buddha called it a poison. Think of what poison does. Poison kills you, makes you very sick. It rises from right inside, and it reaches out for stuff. I got mine and I want yours too. And then it grabs. Okay? Can I turn away from that? Recognize it when it rises? Yes, it's in there, but I don't have to follow it. I don't have to be moved by it. I can turn it with what? Giving. Generosity. Sure enough, I could get another one, but I'd much rather use that same amount of energy and resources and share. Right? Generosity transforms greed. But the first step is to see it. Recognize greed. Now, question is, as I look at this verse, what does greed and grasping have to do with spouse and children? What's the connection? I don't have a spouse or children, so I disqualify myself for answering. Connie?
I feel like when you have children, and thinking about an extreme case of like the apocalypse, I feel like once that kind of situation happens, it's like the father and mother would like do anything or like go to whatever dangerous extent they would go to in order to get enough food for their children. And that's when that kind of situation like tests their greed, because you get really greedy and really when you're deeply attached to someone, I feel like you're really greedy. You become really greedy and really selfish.
You've been watching The Walking Dead?
I've been watching like day after tomorrow.
So, yeah, So the point of your comment was to say what?
I guess like with deep attachment comes greed and grasping. Is that
There's a million stories in this, but I think what the Buddha was saying was to recognize that I've got it. And where does it appear? It appears in our everyday situations. Like, greed is not something that happens to a banker on Wall Street only, you know. It happens to me at the breakfast table. And if I can recognize it, what am I doing? I'm avoiding the oppression of the householder's life. Remember, these first ones are always the theme, and these are variations. So, how do you live skillfully using the Buddha Dharma right where you are? Not thinking, I'm not as good as a monk or a nun, so this doesn't apply. No, that's not. If we think that, we miss the whole point of this. The Buddha's saying, where we are now, married with kids, that's where this teaching applies. 100% of the Dharma, the value of the Dharma is working at that moment. So, how do I understand it? Jim?
As a parent, I think parents may easily be caught in greed and grasping with their children and not giving them the freedom to be themselves.
Ooh. How many, you don't have to raise your hand, how many people here were told what their college major was going to be? Yeah. How many of those people with hands up were happy with the choice? Okay, not as many. Yeah, so Jim's comment was greed and grasping on the point of the parent would be not letting the kid, letting the child express themselves. Fabrizio.
Yes?
Someone who is trained to be a financial analyst makes guitars and teaches. What was that all about? Was there any? Did you? What?
Yeah, I'm sitting here reflecting on my own situation.
I kind of thought you might have been.
For me, I think there's a danger in being kind of blindly obedient to your parents, and because that can potentially get you stuck in living out their dharma, their karma, their patterns. And if we're here to expand our consciousness and expand ourselves and expand and fully realize our potential as embodied beings, as human beings, then I think we have an obligation to, like was just said, listen to our hearts and to dig a little bit deeper and to scan the horizon a little bit wider for other mentors, for other examples of ways to live a life that might be more in line with the way that you can live it.
Now, how much attention did Fab have to pay to his own voices to guide him away from one with the dad's, concern, parent on him, lovingly caring about him and like really, you better decide, son, and turning away and turning and listening, they're adjusting the course. So growing up is not easy, boy oh boy, and parents give us the heart, but the head has to come from listening. We have to listen in. And if you have Chinese parents, it's harder, my goodness, right? If you have Jewish parents, it's harder. They're on you, and that doesn't exclude Mexican and, and Irish parents. Persian parents, oh God. How many, well, we'll yeah. I got this, you have an unmarried daughter, right? I got this guy I want you to meet. So, yeah, this is about, charting a future. It's not spouses yet, but we'll get there. So, amidst the 5 objects of desire, I think, may all beings pull out the arrow of lust and get ultimate peace and calm. Boy, how direct is that? Arrows of lust. What's an arrow like? An arrow used before guns, before weapons of fire. Arrows are weapons of earth still, because they come from trees and metal. But an arrow was the prime way to kill somebody. This projectile with a bow drawn, with force, you loose it and whew, it comes out with sufficient force to pierce your body and disrupt your internal processes and kill you. So arrows do that. The arrow of lust.
Also, Dharma-talks, an arrow is designed to stay inside, and it's very difficult to pull out.
Oh. Arrows stay inside. When you pull it out, it does more damage coming out, right? So, arrow of lust. What an image, right? Lust is considered to be fatal. Something that'll kill you. Wow. So, now, Buddha Dharma tends to be countercultural when it comes to, it's different than the marketplace message. The marketplace message is, love is what it's all about. Find the perfect mate and you got it. You've got society's prize. That's the marketplace. Sells a lot of products, right? That's the message. So, now, not anything necessarily wrong with that. Buddhism doesn't get anywhere by saying bad and wrong. It just says, look carefully at the message that you're being given, because it's not necessarily going to deliver what the promise is. The promise is happiness at the end of the perfect romance. So you better get ready for it with hair, fragrance, color, fashion, all the things that lead you to that promise of happiness at the end of the perfect relationship. Which you will, if you buy all the stuff, the perfect relationship follows. That's the promise, right? That's the message. Okay, Buddha Dharma is saying, might be true, not necessarily true. There are other choices. Shayla.
So not to be a pessimist, but because I've been in the dating field for a little bit, so I'm going to it's not even, love is antiquated right now in contemporary society. This love and this happiness, that's gone. Now it's straight, you're in the lust and this is the place to be. That's it. This is what's being held up as, if you're still thinking of the fantasy and love and falling in love in a family, that is no longer.
That's not hip.
No.
It's now.
I'm very antiquated even to think that I want to have a family and be in love. That's not the norm now.
Talk about Brave New World, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's power. I mean, Beyonce, bless her heart, she's a supremely talented performer, but her message is power. I make the world I want and push everything aside. That's true. Notice Chela's body language as she was doing this, it was strong. And thank you for that. You're teaching what age, what grades?
I teach from kindergarten and up to 6th grade, 5th grade.
Kindergarten to 5th and 6th grade in mainstream America, tuned in, plugged in to what's happening. What's that? Special ed, okay. So the message is right there in front, and there's, I'm so old here, we have lots of younger people in the room, and they're thinking, and we're listening to the monks talk, It's like, well, meanwhile, what's really going on is in the conversations on the trail, So, but we can open the door, and you can teach us what's really going on. Graciela is pointing to this message of love being replaced by something brand new. The same way traditional filiality is being replaced by one parent, no parent, multiple parents online. It takes a village to raise a child. How many social networks does it take to raise your popularity, hot or not? Right? It's like, oh my goodness. Do virtual relationships fill the spot traditionally supplied by human beings? Probably not. But what do we got? Brave New World, right? We're out in an area that has not been charted by humanity yet. We're in a critical breaking time. And I'm glad that this got brought out on the second morning of the week, because this is useful. We don't have any precedent to what we're doing as people. There's never been done before. Trying to grow up without modeling and shaping by other humans. We have digital readouts. And what do we do with them? Okay, you get off the airplane in Hong Kong and you go up the escalator after passing through the baggage, and you're going up to the floor where you're going to, meet your ride and stuff. What does it say on the escalator? The escalator is, you're down below, right? Your feet. The escalator is running up. There's a message printed in Chinese characters vertically down the escalator. It says, 请不只顾你手机电话. Please look at something other than your phone. Why? People come out of the escalator and bang into things. Because their face is here. It has become so mainstream to only look at your readout, at your monitor, that you run into people. They're picking people up all the time off the floor who get run over by a baggage cart because they weren't paying attention. They were looking at their phone. It's printed in the Chinese on the side of the escalator. That's how common it is. So the need to relate to human beings has been replaced by that. Okay, we will continue this evening working through from page 9, number 3, over to page 11 down at the bottom. It's all about monks and nuns. So I thought that would be interesting. There are 9 of us, let's see, 4 and 4. There are 8 of us in the room who can relate to pages 9, 10, and 11. And I thought that would be interesting, just as an insight to some of the things that go on in the mind of a monastic as this works. Because, why? A lot of the verses from the Avatamsaka Sutra's Purifying Practices Chapter go directly into the training of monks and nuns. It's called the 53 Mantras. So this is part of this text is part of our training. So I thought we would just point to that. But I would like to stick with, because these verses relate to so many of us in the room, I don't want to skip them just because the pressure of time. So I think we'll spend more time with that section.